Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to talk about snares and claps and how you can make them yourself inside Serum. I think that's a really cool thing. Instead of using a sample, you might want to go for a self-made clap or a snare, so you have a little bit more control over the way it sounds and some of the things you can do with it. So let's jump straight into it. Alright, so here we have the project. As you can see, we have two tracks set up. Both of them have a Serum. For some reason this has a name and this hasn't. I don't know why, but bear with me. We have a snare that I made, and then we have a clap that I made. Now they're very basic sounds, so I want to quickly get into them, but I mostly want to focus on the ways, again, that you can elaborate on this and take this patch, which I'm going to show you, and work with it and make it sound better or different in the way that you like it. Alright, so let's get into it. As you can see, mostly what's happening here is that we're using a sine wave as well as a bright white noise. Now the sine wave is set to -1 octave, and that's fairly important. Normally when I have one waveform in here, I tend to just turn down the MIDI by an octave, but in this case I didn't want that. The reason for that is because we're using key tracking on the oscillator here, so on the noise generator or sampler as it's technically is. So let's go over what we're actually doing. As you can see, we have one LFO set up to the volume of this sine wave, which is going to provide us with that fundamental frequency. We have this LFO here also set to envelope mode, controlling the amount of noise that we have, and this is a little bit more open than the other one. We want the noise to be a little bit longer than the actual fundamental. And then we have this, which controls our click, and again I've set up a macro which allows you to dial in the amount of click that you want, and of course you can go in and set multiple macros also for this level here, as well as the level of your fundamental and of course your noise. Now this goes into a particular bandpass filter here, both the noise and the fundamental, and they're kind of used to not only boost the volume a bit but also give the higher end a little bit more fatness and a little bit more volume, because I thought it was lacking if we turn it down. Oh. You can hear the difference. It sounds a lot better with that bandpass on. So you can use this to dial in a little bit more power in that high end if you want. Then we're going through distortion. Distortion really helps kind of shape the whole thing and makes it sound a little bit more unified. If you turn it off, you can really hear that it's two distinct elements. And with it on, it kind of crushes it all together, and you can, of course, if you turn this up, you get a more extreme effect. You get kind of the dubstep snare, that really loud snare that some people might want. We have a few other things here. I thought that the volume wasn't good enough. The volume of the original sounded like this. You can really hear that it doesn't sound that great, and therefore we use this compressor, not only to compress and again use it to make all the two elements, which is the noise and the fundamental, stick together more and make it more unified sound, but we also use it to have this massive gain addition here, which just adds a whole lot of gain to your sound. And keep in mind that you want to turn your master volume down when you're doing this, otherwise you're going to be clipping. But this is a good way to, after you've done some distortion or compression, still add volume, especially when you're using LFOs and stuff like that, because you can't really map it to here in a nice way, I find. Then we have some reverb, just a little bit to kind of put it in a room. Kind of gives it that little bit of stereo high end, which is really nice. And then finally we have a high pass. Now the high pass is kind of used again to make the fundamental and the noise kind of glue together. If we don't have it, it sounds, you can hear we really have the fundamental sticking out. So this just lowers the volume of that fundamental a little bit with the high pass, and also removes any sub frequencies from the noise, which gets really high when you're actually distorting them and compressing them. So you kind of want to remove those as well. So the main fundamental, to kind of recap this when you're designing snares, is that you want a fundamental sine wave which plays at I don't really know which octave this is. Let's quickly find out. Alright, so we're playing a G3, but the octave is down 1, so it would be a G2 if you're not using the trick with the key tracking here. If you don't want your noise to be key tracked and you just want to have the noise the same for every single note, you can set this to 0 and play a G2 note, and that's going to be the range where your fundamental is in. So between C1 and C2 and C3 would be. And of course you can experiment with this. You can turn it up an octave higher and get those nice high snare sounds as well. And then you want to have your noise, and then from there it's basically all melting them together using different techniques, like this distortion, like this compression, like this not very special, but the EQ we're using here is all used to make sure that they sound as unified as possible, because that's very hard to do, of course. So that's basically how you do snares. Now it's, of course, again, very customizable. You can change the filter, you can change the slopes here, you can change the click amount here, you can turn it off. Kind of makes it a little bit more analog sounding and not so synthesized. So that's the snare. Now the clap is later. I wanted to go over the clap later because the clap kind of has just one of these two elements, so it's a lot easier to do. You can hear this clap, sounds really nice, and all it is just, as you can see, we have an EQ here, and it's just a very specific volume modulation on a noise sound. We are using these ARP white noise, which I really like for claps, and what I've done is I've drawn in two very short spikes, and then I've drawn in a tail, and as you can see, I've set the rate to 1/8. If you turn it down to 1/4, you can really hear the individual spike sounds, which we don't really want. We want it to sound, again, a bit more unified. So you can either fuzz about here if you want a really long tail and make them all the way here and make it very, very short, or you can just set the rate down and you will get a little bit of a shorter clap. But it will sound unified as a clap. And then again, to remove any of the low stuff, we have a high pass filter. Without it, it sounds like this, which also sounds decent, but to kind of get that right tone and that right feeling, we turn it up. You can also turn it up a little bit more if you want. I like to have this with a very low Q value, so it really nicely curves up like this. If you turn it up, you can also give it a bit more of a distinct tone though. And give it, again, a bit more tone if you want to. So again, very customizable, and this is one of the easiest patches out there. It's just a noise being modulated with an EQ. No filtering, nothing. So that's all I wanted to talk about, and I am planning on also doing 2 more tutorials on drums, one of which is going to be on percussions, which I'm not really sure about how I'm going to fill that in, because percussions can be any range of things. And I also want to cover hi-hats, which is another key part in drum sounds, is to make your own hi-hats. It can be very versatile and very useful to do that. So if you like that, you feel free to subscribe and stick around for that. I noticed a lot of you aren't subscribed to this channel, which is a shame because you're missing out on some cool sound design tutorials and also some live streams, which I usually do after I upload the video. About 2 hours after that, I tend to live stream on Twitch. So if you're interested in that, go click the link down below and follow me there. And there should be a notification system as well. If you really want to catch me, you can have it send out a notification just like YouTube would. And yeah, I hope to see you there. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like. That really helps the channel a lot. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.